Welcome to America the Beautiful, Reflections on Her Past, Present, and Future by Sri Chinmoy, as read by Richard Dreyfuss. This volume represents the inaugural publication of Illumine Press. It is a compilation of the writings of Sri Chinmoy, the majority of which were written in the years directly preceding and following America's bicentennial in 1976. That period represented a time of great hope for America, Sri Chinmoy believed. He felt that the soul of America was coming to the fore most powerfully. While the politics of America ebbed and flowed, Sri Chinmoy never lost his belief in the ideals America represents. He constantly urged his fellow Americans to kindle within their hearts the sacred fire of aspiration that inspired the founding fathers and the great patriots, men and women of our nation. Illumine Press sincerely hopes that this volume of his works inspires such introspection and assists in the discovery of that sacred fire in the hearts of people worldwide. Now, Academy Award-winning actor and noted humanitarian Richard Dreyfuss.
America the Beautiful, Reflections on Her Past, Present, and Future. Compiled from the writings of Sri Chinmoy. Sri Chinmoy was a poet, author, philosopher, playwright, athlete, and musician who dedicated his life to the pursuit of peace and goodwill. The recipient of numerous prizes, awards, and honorary doctorates, he has been recognized globally for the simplicity and power of his work. He was born in India and made his home in New York City from April 1964 until his passing in October 2007. Foreword by Dr. James G. Basker, Professor, Columbia University, President, Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. As this extraordinary collection of meditative prose and poetry reveals, Sri Chinmoy loved America. Having come to the United States in 1964, a pivotal time in his own life and that of his adopted country, he expressed his love in a rich and continuous series of reflections that are rooted in American history. Sri Chinmoy deeply admired the American founding fathers, Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, for their individual virtues and collective achievement. The founding of America, in the vision of Sri Chinmoy, was an event not just of national, but of global importance. The founders, he writes, wanted to show that their liberty was not only for them, but for the whole world to use. It was an ideal for the world to embrace. Elsewhere, drawing on his personal experience and transnational perspective, he writes that the purpose of America is not only its own illumination and perfection, but the illumination and perfection of the entire world. Not that these truths will be universally understood and appreciated. For all his idealism and hope, Sri Chinmoy acknowledges reality. He writes, "Those who bring new light into the world will never get the appreciation, admiration, adoration, and love that they deserve. Never." Nonetheless, he attributes to America a unique importance in world history, both in the past and as its full benefit to humanity unfolds in the future. He writes, "The American spirit is America's eagerness to know what the world needs." Ultimately, Sri Chinmoy's vision, centered on America, is one of hope. The birth of America and its issuance of the Declaration of Independence fundamentally changed the world's trajectory. Every reader, whether American or any other nationality, will be moved by Sri Chinmoy's reflections in America the Beautiful. Through these writings, he takes his own place in the history and literature of America, while also shining a light into the future of our country and of the emerging global community. America. America, America, great you are, good you are, brave you are, kind you are. Oh, my America. America, your heaven freedom is earth's aspiration choice. With you, in you, is God ours victory voice. Sri Chinmoy. Prologue. What is the American spirit? The American spirit is America's eagerness to know what the world needs. What does America claim? A colossal preparation, not only for its own illumination and perfection, but for the illumination and perfection of the entire world. America's mind believes in the theory of give and take. Therefore, America is great. America's heart believes in the theory of give. Just give. Therefore, America is good. The difference between America's greatness and America's goodness is this. America's greatness silences the world and then beckons the world. America's goodness accelerates the world and then elevates the world. The soul of America, like a child, is growing, glowing, developing, illumining, and fulfilling. It is a soul that is most progressive and most striking. America's matchless contribution shall be her supreme universal friendship, in which the family of nations will see beckoning hands, oneness satisfaction, and perfection manifestation. In the supreme pilot's scheme of things, the United States is going to play the role not so much of leadership as of friendship, nay, brotherhood, in mankind's evolution. And evolution is another name for mankind's spiritual development. America's goal, like the goal of all the nations and human beings, is always in the process of self-transcendence. There is no fixed goal. America's main goal is a flood of satisfaction, inner and outer. This satisfaction has undoubtedly been achieved to a certain extent, but since everything is progressing and evolving, America's goal is an ever-loving, ever-illumining, and fulfilling goal of continuous self-transcendence. Awakening. Who is a patriot? A patriot is he who loves his country dearly. A patriot is he who loves his country more than he loves his own life. A patriot is he who intuitively feels and infallibly knows that there is nothing, and there can be nothing, as significant as his own country. A patriot is he who honors and treasures his soul's earth-bound and heaven-descending vision. A patriot is he who fulfills devotedly and untiringly the supreme promise to God, the Absolute Supreme, which he made while he was in the realm of the soul before entering into the earth arena. A patriot is he who has discovered the true truth, that heaven is in no way superior to earth. What is true patriotism? True patriotism is not something that declares war in order to prove its supremacy. True patriotism is not unlit, impure self-assertion. True patriotism is one's genuine love of one's country. True patriotism is loving what one already has. To be precise, true patriotism is real love for what God has already given us out of his infinite bounty. True patriotism realizes the undeniable fact that an individual patriot and his country are but pure instruments of the Absolute Supreme. Patriots are those who have helped their country and elevated its consciousness so that the reality of their country has widened. There have been many American patriots in the past, and there will be many more. The Supreme had a special vision for the soul of America, and he revealed it first through the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers were definitely spiritually illumined. The American patriots were great not because they felt that it was beneath their dignity to remain under the jurisdiction of the British, but because they felt that deep within them they had some truly divine spiritual qualities which could easily be brought to the fore. And when these divine qualities were brought to the fore, they felt that not only would they derive infinite benefit and profit from them, but that the whole world would derive benefit. To destroy a country, we need power. This power is undivine, unillumined, and ill-founded. To love a country, we need a great power. This great power is our pure and constant concern for our country. To serve a country devotedly and untiringly, we need a greater power. This greater power is our intuitive and self-offering psychic light. To claim all nations as our very own, one and inseparable, we need the greatest power. This power is the all-illumining, all-immortalizing, all-fulfilling God power, which is always crying and trying and crying to come to the fore from the inmost recesses of our heart. We are walking along the road of eternity with a divine, unending, ceaseless, and birthless life to manifest the divinity within us. We have to offer to our country what we have: love, sacrifice, and the feeling of oneness. The moment we have offered to our country our unalloyed love and pure sacrifice, and have established our inseparable oneness with the soul of our country, to our wide surprise, we see that our country has already immortalized us. For our country has chosen us out of millions, billions, and trillions of souls to take birth on her shores. Our country has played her role long before we thought of offering something to our country. What we offer to our country is at best an iota of love, whereas our country has already inundated us with boundless love. This is the love our country has already achieved and received from the Absolute Supreme. Patriotism can achieve for a country the message of oneness, the message of satisfaction, the message of human perfection and God manifestation. The country is the mother. In order for the mother to be pleased and fulfilled, she has to be given the full opportunity to feed her children unreservedly. The mother gets this opportunity when the children want from her what she has: her love, her concern, her blessing, her compassion, her sympathy, her feeling of oneness. A patriot can offer his need to the mother country. When he tells his country what he needs, the country gets the opportunity to fulfill it. Again, when a patriot becomes a real lover of his country, then his love enters into the country. First he cries for love from his country, and then he gives the country his own love. When he feels he has no love, he cries for the mother to give him love. And then when the mother gives love to him, he feels that he has abundant love, and he offers it back to his country. When love of country and love from country are simultaneous, the message of oneness, the message of satisfaction, the message of human perfection and God manifestation can dawn. Patriotism is self-giving and self-expansion based on your conscious oneness with all consciousness, your inseparable oneness with all. That is the meaning of patriotism in the spiritual sense. The self-giving of the Founding Fathers was the wish not merely to come out from under the British yoke, but for something higher and deeper. True, first they had to be free from British authority, leadership, and guidance, but they had something deeper in the inmost recesses of their hearts that they wanted to express, a higher truth that they wanted to manifest. They wanted to show that their liberty was not only for them to use, but for the whole world to use. It was an ideal for the world to embrace, a real ideal in human progress that would stand among humanity's ultimate achievements. England said to America, "Yours is not revolution, but mental confusion." America said to England, "Thank you for your self-styled wisdom." The world said to America, "America, yours is not revolution, but evolution." Not only your evolution, but the evolution of the world, too. America said to the world, "I love you for your God-ordained encouragement and inspiration." America's independence, humanity's self-awareness, and divinity's self-transcendence were one, inseparably one. The light always has to be embodied by great and noble individuals. The soul of America is extremely fond of patriotism and proud of patriotism because it was the patriotic feeling of some brave, divine human beings that brought about liberty in America. America's soul was in bondage. Its soul, its life of reality, could not come to the fore in the country as a whole. But there came a time when a few heroic, divine soldiers felt the necessity of liberating their country. The soul of America came forward to offer its own light and delight to these brave souls. It got the opportunity to inject the feeling of patriotism into those few selected children of America so that they could be true and humble instruments of God and please God according to their capacity, their understanding, and their inner and outer awakening. Victory in the War of Independence is the foundation stone of American nationality. The American patriots were very noble souls. They never said they desired leadership, but God was molding them for something. In their case, the word God was not uttered, but they spoke about the truth. Patriotism, if it is carried out properly, is truth. India's greatest patriot, Mahatma Gandhi, said, "God and truth are the same." So in the case of America, truth was the sole motivating force. But you have to know that practically every American president has used the term Almighty Father in their inaugural addresses. The Almighty Father played his role in silence and in action, in and through the leaders of America. George Washington was the father of the American nation. He was the son of peace and the brother of self-giving. George Washington, you and you alone were America's supreme need and divine choice to lead your country to victory. You offered your country the smile of victory's freedom dawn. Victory's sun shone on the life and soul of America, and that soul blessed you, embraced you, and treasured you. I salute the indomitable spirit of the general in you. I bow to the peerless wisdom of the president in you. I take endless pride in the father of the nation in you. You have always been a true lover of peace. You have always valued peace infinitely more than anything else. Your country needed you to fight for her. Your country needed you to liberate her from bondage night. You surrendered your own will to our country's will. Under your supreme leadership, your country won the war. Then, your country needed you to desperately build an undivided nation. Your country needed your guidance inimitable. You were the first and last president to be everybody's choice. Many succeeded you, but you, with your lofty ideals, will be their pole star. George Washington, a divinely inspired dream, daring and desperate, a surprise that made history. A farmer's son founds the new world. Inferior endowment from nature, he thought of himself, but the divine made him his efficient instrument. High character and majestic will, powerfully blended with courage and capacity. Thus stood forth the man of the hour, the man of destiny, the man of God. And from his mighty dream, mightily executed, burst forth a new free world, destined to be the hope and defense of more free worlds to be. Victory in the War of Independence. England lost to her own offspring. England won for herself a mightier friend. A new era heralded. A new shattering blow struck at man's domination over man. Independence, the first step to unity. And unity, one truth of God. George Washington, first to embody America's hope. First in inspiration, first in confidence, first in war, first in victory, first in conquering the heart of his nation. First to envision a federation of states, single, powerful, united, whole. The essential qualities of Thomas Jefferson were clarity, luminosity, and vastness. Clarity, luminosity, and vastness, these the Declaration of Independence embodies. Jefferson was the most divinely talented man of his time. He covered quite a few fields in every walk of life, and he went a considerable distance in each. In his case, mind, body, vital, heart, everything went together. This moment, he was a musician. Next moment, he was a sculptor. This moment, he was a man of brain. Next moment, he was a physical, earthly laborer. God gave him capacities in many walks of life, and he used them well. One book speaks about Jefferson as the happiest man. To become the happiest man is the most difficult thing on earth. And that he was. Unfortunately, Jefferson came long before the world, especially America, was prepared for his beautiful and powerful wisdom light. Always, prophets come at least 1 minute before the world is able to appreciate them. When they are here, they are not accepted. They have such wisdom, but they are not taken seriously. Only afterwards does the world accept and appreciate them. Thomas Jefferson never was and perhaps never will be appreciated in the way God wanted him to be appreciated, because gratitude was not, is not, and never will be born in this world. No other president, no other American has done, or perhaps will ever do, so much for the progress of the American consciousness as Thomas Jefferson has done. Countries other than America that have developed inner vision will appreciate Jefferson much more than America. Those who bring new light into the world never get the appreciation, admiration, adoration, and love that they deserve. Never. This will never happen, because the kind of gratitude that is worthy of their light and their vision has not been born and never will be born on earth. Jefferson's vision elevated the consciousness of the world in the twinkling of an eye. The light that he wanted to show his country and the light that he wanted his country to bring forward was so badly misunderstood. He never received the appreciation that he so rightly deserved, and he will never get it because humanity does not have that kind of gratitude. Thomas Jefferson, for your extraordinary service to your country, you would have been known as a great man. But for your offering of your Independence Declaration, you are known as a good man, a God messenger, a vision son of God. Washington lives at one place, in the heart of America. Jefferson lives at 3 places, in the heart, head, and eyes of America. The heart represents the feelings, the head represents the intellect, and the eyes represent the vision. When we think of Washington, we think only of the mission that he had to fulfill. He had to do his duty by his country. This was not his self-imposed duty. It was a duty cast upon him by his mother and others who begged him to become the leader of the nation. But when we think of Jefferson, vision and mission go together. He saw the inner promise of America, and he was able to reveal it. When we look at Washington, we see his power aspect. He played the role of a supreme hero and defeated the British in battle. He was the power not to illumine others, but to conquer them. When we look at Jefferson, we see his light aspect. Unlike Washington, he did not have to show his heroism. His role was to stabilize the country by spreading his light. In his case, it was his inner vision, or light, that conquered the hearts of others. Washington's message was for America. It did not extend beyond the boundaries of his country. His aim was to expel the British, and he assumed responsibility for accomplishing this feat. Jefferson's message was for the whole world. When he wrote, he did not specify any country. His words are applicable to the entire humanity. The source of Jefferson's vision was inner light. This light spread from Jefferson's heart to his country and then to the world at large. Washington was like a small circle that grew larger and larger as his power expanded. Jefferson was not like a circle. His light was not confined. It simply permeated the world wherever it could, according to the receptivity of the individuals. When Washington was playing the role of a dynamic hero, Jefferson was not in the picture. Jefferson came afterwards to help the young nation make progress. he said, "We have thrown the British out of our country, but it is not enough just to defeat our enemies. If we want to make progress and go ahead, then we have to bring forward the inner light." Jefferson's vision came as the light that America needed in order to become fully mature. Jefferson's vision came as the light that the whole world needs in order to become divinely perfect. Thomas Jefferson's vision was the Declaration of Independence, but it is not Jefferson's vision alone. Many people saw the reality. It was the vision of that era, the vision of all who surrounded Jefferson. You can call it the vision of Washington, Adams, Franklin, Paine, and others. Again, the sense of sacrifice of all those who fought for this country in those days, no matter how little or how much, deserves our special attention. Who could have envisaged that the 13 colonies would one day develop into such a powerful country, 50 states standing indivisible, united by none other than the hand of the Supreme Being? For the United States, the heart-throbbing and life-illumining song, United, had its birthless and deathless origin in the hearts of the great Americans whose names are synonymous with the lofty principles of liberty, justice, and oneness. The founder of the nation, George Washington. The vision luminary, Thomas Jefferson. The wisdom son, Benjamin Franklin. The tireless fighter, John Adams. These powerful luminaries, along with others, bravely dreamt of unity for the 13 colonies. Namo, 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 Shanti Pujari, Mukti Dishari, Hey Amara America. Namo, 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 Shanti Pujari, Mukti Dishari, Hey Amara America. blossoming. We see another wave of patriotism when President Abraham Lincoln came to office. Lincoln was a seeker in the pure sense of the term. God gave him a magnanimous heart. Emerson said of him, his heart was as great as the world, but there was no room in it to hold a wrong. When we become a seeker, we try to have a heart as vast as the world itself, or try to have a heart even vaster than the world. In this vast heart, a real seeker does not see the ignorance of the world as belonging to others. The heart of a true seeker sees the imperfections, limitations, and bondage of others as its very own. Emerson says, Lincoln's heart did not hold a wrong, but I wish to say that his heart did not hold a wrong of his own. His heart did hold the wrongs of millions and billions of human beings, and he accepted these wrongs of others as his very own, not with a sense of pride, but with a sense of oneness. Abraham Lincoln, born under no lucky star, but dynamic in his dreams, he fought his way to luck, from log cabin to White House. No soul on earth supreme over another. No soul on earth supreme over another. Equality in every man's birthright and treasure. Black and white, brown and red make no difference. This nation cannot exist half slave, half free. From his voice, these bold truths rang out. He had the gift to dream of union, the courage and capacity to fight, the confidence to win, the patience that knew no flagging. Faith in God's justice was his stamina. Faith in God was his might. Natural, the affinity of vision-luminous souls, so Emerson could say of Lincoln, his heart was as great as the world, but there was no room in it to hold a wrong. Force is all-conquering, but its victories are short-lived. Love is all-conquering, and its victories live on forever. What is really important? Are we God's, or is God ours? The idealist in Lincoln reveals, we trust, sir, that God is on our side. It is more important to know that we are on God's side. With President Woodrow Wilson, we notice another wave of patriotism. Wilson was the chief architect of the organization known as the League of Nations, which was potentially a step towards human unity. Unless America takes part in this treaty, Wilson was firmly convinced, the world is going to lose heart. I cannot too often repeat to you how deep the impression made upon me on the other side of the water is that this was the nation upon which the whole world depended to hold the scales of justice even. If we fail them, God help the world. Then despair will ensue. It was the vision of an American to have the League of Nations. But the ignorance of America did not accept this vision. It was not supported by America. As an American, Wilson was listened to, admired, and appreciated by many countries, because he saw the light. But the members of his own family were not accepting his light. Still, it was not all darkness, and we see another wave of patriotism at that time. and the League of Nations grew into the United Nations. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was elected for an unprecedented 4 terms. There was tremendous light in President Roosevelt. O man of lofty ideals, O hero warrior, O prophet of the world, illumining dawn, we soulfully salute you. The supremacy of your soul's willpower over your body's revolt, your physical paralysis, was unparalleled. Your very existence was a stranger to fear. Your indomitable courage was far beyond the flight of our wildest imagination. It was your heart's wisdom light that so lovingly and convincingly taught the entire world the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Indeed, the vision light of this loftiest message can illumine the length and breadth of the world. President Roosevelt, the embodiment of your vision height and action power, will always be treasured by the freedom-loving and peace-spreading world. O great, good, illumining, inspiring, and fulfilling soul, to you we bow. President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. There have been so many undivined stories about his personal life, but this is all nonsense. We have to see Kennedy's vision, his real vision. Kennedy's soul went very high and very deep. He died quite young. That is why his soul's light did not manifest fully in the outer life. But the patriotism in his inner life is bound to manifest in the course of time. The light that his soul has will again try to manifest on earth through a different form. He will be known as somebody else, but it will be the same soul. Again, the light that an individual embodies need not remain dormant in him until he comes back to earth again. His light can operate through his dear ones or through those who are not near or dear, but who have the same principles. They may not even be American, but they may carry Kennedy's illustrious vision. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of America, Prince of high idealism, freedom incarnate, helper of humanity. If America wants to be friends with all the world, who can be her enemy? Says her mouthpiece, President Kennedy. We are not against any man or any nation or any system, except as it is hostile to freedom. It seems that in Kennedy's dictionary there are 2 complementary words which enrich and fulfill the sense of each other and constitute together the master formula of the language: freedom and peace. Kennedy said, "We will make clear that America's enduring concern is for both peace and freedom, that we are anxious to live in harmony with the Russian people, that we seek no conquests, no satellites, no riches, that we seek only the day when nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. True, poverty and ignorance are man's bitter foes, but to replace poverty by affluence and ignorance by knowledge is not enough. Material success is not all. The quest of the spirit is of vital importance. For the first time, said Kennedy, we have the capacity to strike off the remaining bonds of poverty and ignorance, to free our people for the spiritual and intellectual fulfillment which has always been the goal of our civilization. President Kennedy was, as it were, the lineal descendant of the American nation's traditional leadership. As George Washington was the father of the United States, as Abraham Lincoln was its savior, as Franklin D. Roosevelt was the voice of America, even so, John F. Kennedy was the noble defender of world freedom and world peace. John Fitzgerald Kennedy is unique. Why? God kindled him with his dream. On him, God showered his blessings divine, thickly, lavishly, significantly. Kennedy is unique. Why? God threw on him the burden of the world at large, smilingly, consciously, inevitably. Kennedy is unique. Why? His soul visioned tomorrow's dawn, far beyond the flight of imagination, far above the strongest investigation, deep within the core of transformation. Kennedy is unique. Why? He pined with his bleeding heart to free the world from the spiked wounds of life. This eyeless earth of ours will burst into glorious bloom. He saw this diamond truth while dreaming, struggling, daring. Never was he alone. Tragedy and sovereignty, catastrophe and victory, freely in him were grown. Never was he alone. God's bright promise and bliss, earth's wild ignorance, and her kiss, lavishly in him were grown. Alone he stood above all storms of life. He stood alone to challenge pain and strife. Alone he stood to feed a blooming race. He stood alone to change earth's tearful face. Kennedy. President Kennedy, a mystic name that floats in the ether, a giant name that swims in the sea of souls, a dynamic name that stabs through human fears. Kennedy, President Kennedy, a name that drinks God's nectar of love, a name that dances on man's hallowed thoughts, a man of kindled hope below, above. Kennedy's hope was the world. Its hope was Kennedy. Kennedy's life was the world. Its promise was Kennedy. Together they breathe through eternity. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. introduced the principle of nonviolence to his brothers and sisters who were struggling for equal rights in all spheres of life. His momentous words were, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality." He was very pure in mind and heart. He was a lover not only of his race, but a lover of all mankind. His heart was so broad, so great, so magnanimous, and this gave him a most sincere feeling of absolute oneness with everyone. This is what made him so divinely great. Martin Luther King, beloved King of the heart world, unhorizoned vision of the mind world, hero warrior of the vital world, life sacrificer of the body world. To you, my aspiration, dedication, life bows. In America, the absolute supreme chose you to be his unparalleled student, to love divinely the soul of his creation, and to serve unreservedly the body of his creation. Many American poets are patriotic heroes just because their inner experiences have awakened and illumined and added to America's consciousness. One may think Walt Whitman's poems are vital, but they are from the dynamic vital, not the aggressive vital. In his poems, he wanted to say, do not discard the body consciousness, value it. The body is not all barren. It is only something for us to utilize. The other side of the body is the soul. He urged humanity to see that inside the body there is also reality. From his body consciousness, he has awakened the consciousness of America. Whitman is nature. Whitman is vastness. Whitman is all inspiration, solid and subtle. He is the body and soul of poetry that peers into truth. His Leaves of Grass reveals the depth of his insight and the wideness of his outlook. His determined and forceful personality shines through these poems, which he called New World Songs and an epic of democracy. When the wind and storm of today brings in the golden tomorrow, Whitman will shine forth, hallowed in a new glory on the new horizon. His poems and his nation's consciousness are inseparable. A man's poems must always be an absolute reflection of his character and personality, and Whitman is no exception. Whitman's vision of the oneness of everything and in everything compels him to reveal, "Oh, my soul, if I realize you, I have satisfaction. animals and vegetables, if I realize you, I have satisfaction. Laws of the earth and air, if I realize you, I have satisfaction. Born ahead of his time, Whitman pointed his nation and the world to the path of tomorrow, and by the grace of the Supreme, the dawn rays of tomorrow have already become visible, however faintly, on today's horizon. Emerson and Whitman are twin souls of the truth. Emerson, soft, sweet, and luminous, and Whitman, dynamically fronting the reality which is manifesting to an ever-increasing extent. Fellow pilgrims on their way to the home of God, the culmination of today's world. They march in stupendous glory. Ralph Waldo Emerson also offered most significant service, not only to America, but to the whole world. Emerson had an illumined mind. Very few souls as illumined as Emerson have come into this world. Emerson had light in abundant measure. With his illumined mind, he served his country and the world. Emerson received his light, his ideas, from a very old tradition, the Upanishadic teachings. It was not stealing. It came from within his own inner cry. America, the fairest land of freedom, opportunity, and progress, inspired in Emerson the thought that his countrymen should utilize all her divine gifts to strive for the most divine aims of life. Indeed, America will gain her true stature when she lives up to her philosopher son's towering aspirations. Happily, two great contemporaries, Lincoln and Emerson, offer an historic example of mutual appreciation. During the ever-memorable Civil War in America, it was Emerson's inspiration that offered the best and the bravest words. He fully supported President Lincoln in his mighty undertaking and addressed him as the protector of American freedom. Neither could the president remain silent. He honored the seer in Emerson with his warm appreciation, the prophet of American faith. Emily Dickinson wrote thousands of psychic poems. One short poem of hers is enough to give sweet feelings and bring to the fore divine qualities of the soul. Henry David Thoreau was also a great soul. His vision encompassed the overall experience of reality. Norman Rockwell not only saw America's simplicity life and America's happiness heart, but he also became simplicity and happiness in the purest sense of the terms. America's vastness the world knows. America's oneness only a soul like Norman Rockwell could feel. We, the seekers, shall always feel in him America's oneness-loving life and America's satisfaction-distributing heart. Norman Rockwell embodies the reality's revealed dream.
O star-spangled banner, O star-spangled banner, of thee, our supreme, supreme.
Reflections. Because of her high ideals, America really did deserve her independence. Also, I wish to say that it usually takes a long time to make the progress America has made. For America to take only a few hundred years to reach her present level of advancement is like doing it in the twinkling of an eye. If any country makes progress, it is for the world's benefit, for other countries as well. America has bad qualities, true, but American principles are absolutely divine. Unfortunately, as has happened in other countries, a kind of complacent feeling has entered into Americans. They want to be satisfied with what they have and do not want to go farther. But they should move ahead and strive for a higher consciousness. The goal is not static. America can run at top speed, or it can go slowly and steadily. If it has a complacent feeling and does not want to run fast, then, of course, let it rest. While it is taking rest, there will obviously be a lack of patriotic feelings in the nation. When we reach a certain goal, we think that is the end, but each goal is only the starting point for a higher goal. Some may blame the young generation for America's lack of aspiration, but actually it depends on human beings of all ages. If we blame the young, then we have to blame their parents and their elders as well. It is not true that 100 years ago all Americans were absolutely pure, divine, and spiritual, and that all of a sudden in this century everybody has become undivine. The world is progressing. The world is evolving. But sometimes there are obstructions on the way. When you are running fast, sometimes you become tired and exhausted, and your speed decreases. Instead of speaking of the young generation and the old generation, let us regard both generations as a single human being who is running. At times he is running at top speed, and at times he is running slowly, with the speed of an Indian bullock cart. But even then, he is still proceeding along the road. He is either walking or marching or running very fast. So, if we see a lack of aspiration right now, then we can say that that person is not running his fastest. He is moving very slowly because he is tired. We have to know that aspiration is a very vast, complicated subject. Aspiration can be directed towards God realization. Industrial progress can also be an object of aspiration. Material progress, not luxury or indulgence, but let us say scientific progress and discovery, is based on aspiration. 20th century scientists discovered so many things that the scientists of the 18th century had not discovered. So in that sense, the progress that America has made is most praiseworthy. We have to consider aspiration in all phases of life, not just spirituality. For the last several decades, the aspiration of young people in America has far surpassed the aspiration of their elders. If anyone says that lack of aspiration is to be blamed on young people, to be very frank with you, I wish to say that the young ones whom I have observed have shown much more aspiration than their parents and superiors. If you examine the spiritual evolution of America, you will see that it is the young generation that is leading it. When the inner call came, the young generation listened to it. It is the aspiration from the young generation that has kept the banner of America's spiritual life flying. For the young generation, anything new is good. The young dare to see the face of the new, True, newness need not always mean goodness, but neither can we say that newness is always bad. It is the strength of the young generation that is making America become really spiritual. The young have made mistakes, but they are coming out of their mistakes. Some of them have already come out of their mistakes, and now they are turning toward the light. Previously, a soulful promise reigned supreme. Now, a fruitful hope reigns supreme. The spirit at that time was promise. Now it has become hope. The spirit of the past was the discovery of inner adamantine will to fight against bondage. The present spirit is the aspiration for God manifestation, plus the aspiration to become humanity's brother, humanity's selfless lover, and divinity's constant server. How can America afford to ignore world problems when God, out of his infinite bounty, has given America a heart similar to his own? The rest of the world needs America, not because America is great, but because America is willing, at times conditionally, but always unreservedly. America's special strength lies not in frightening the weak and challenging the strong, but in strengthening the weak and illumining the strong. I hear America singing. I must say America's voice is loud, America's voice is good, and soul-stirring, too. I see America dancing. I must say, although America's dance wants to illumine the world, it ends by frightening the world, not only beyond the world imagination, but beyond her own loftiest imagination, too. America can serve the world most provided America feels that the service it renders to the community of nations is nothing but its own illumining and self-fulfilling expansion. One should not come to America for the first time. Jawaharlal Nehru. O non-Americans, the heart and soul of America are welcoming you. Come, with your openness heart, to be inseparably one with America's ascending heart of hope and manifesting soul of promise. American citizens can learn to love their country more by realizing the supreme fact that there is no difference between true love of one's country and true love of God. One's country is nothing short of God's concentrated creation. The soul of America is satisfied, but since there is no end to outer and inner progress, the soul of America could be more satisfied if America cared more devotedly for its outer and inner progress. You can love America much more sincerely and soulfully, provided you feel that America is not a vast piece of land and a machine-driven country, but a life-illumining, love-fulfilling, and peace-spreading country. Smile, America. My America, smile. Why do you weep? Why do you cry? The world's volley of criticism need not curse the real in you, and it cannot curse the real in you. Smile, America. Run and jump. Fly. Achieve and become. Smile, America. Smile. American leaders can best foster true patriotism only when they themselves are true patriots. Not in name or word, but in action. True patriotism is self-giving for a higher and nobler cause. When the American leaders become truly self-giving at every moment, then whatever they do and say for their country will be for the betterment and improvement of their country, and not for the aggrandizement of their own egos, either consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously. At this time, American leaders, without fail, will foster true patriotism in others. Patriotism, in the purest sense of the term, will be injected into the heart of the entire American nation. For every action of theirs will be a conscious, constant, self-giving to expand, enlarge, and illumine the consciousness of America for America's sake, and not for the glorification of any individual. One does not have to be 100% behind the government in order to become a patriot. We have to know that it is not the government that we want to govern our country. It is the collective aspiration that will guide the country. If the government fails in fulfilling our aspiration, then we shall not look up to the government to guide us. It is the real in us that will guide the nation. By dint of fate, some individuals in the government are ruling the body of the country, but they are not ruling the heart of the country. As individuals, we are given ample opportunities to illumine the fate of the country. When people in authority misuse their power, eventually they are dethroned. History bears witness to this fact. It bears witness to the fact that hundreds of kings, potentates, presidents, and statesmen have all had to come down from the highest height because of their misuse of power. On your part, as a seeker, you have to create aspiration and inspiration in those of your countrymen who do not subscribe to the views of the government. It is not that you are rebelling against the government, but only that you have seen a higher light, and you are offering your higher light in a spiritual way. You are offering it not with any animosity or antagonistic feeling, but with the higher thought that you can better the consciousness of your country. And with that, you are embarking on this new divine project. Undoubtedly, patriotic feelings in the past were infinitely stronger than what you observe now. In the days of the American Revolution, patriotism was something living. It was essential, like breathing air. But now, patriotism, not only in America but all over the world, has become a mere word. The American patriots of the past felt that life and patriotism were inseparable. They felt that patriotism was the manifestation of life's freedom, that it was the only way to love one's country, and they did not expect anything from the country. They only wanted to give what they had and what they were. Now, not only in America, but everywhere, everybody wants to take from their country. Nobody wants to give to their country. President Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." At every moment, we expect from our country. But what have we done for it? Our forefathers did not expect anything from their country. God is really on the side of that particular nation that says it is on God's side. If a nation can sincerely say that it does not want God to be on its side, but that it wants to be on God's side, then God is definitely on that side. If a nation begs God to be on its side, it is because of ego and desire. But if a nation says, "I am always eager to be on your side, whatever side you take," then immediately God has to be on that nation's side. You can best regain the nobility and wisdom of the founding fathers in America by meditating on the independent spirit of America, which was treasured not only by earth's aspiration, but also by heaven's illumination. America's hope, America's promise, and America's freedom. These three qualities America can transmit to the world body today, provided America does not claim them as her own personal achievements, but as compassionate boons from above, from the Almighty Father. No matter what ultra-modern science has made of America, no matter what the modern intellectual giants have made of America, in the depths of America's heart and life, there shall always dwell three virtues. Simplicity, a childlike simplicity. Happiness, a child's happiness. And satisfaction, a child's constantly blossoming satisfaction that comes when America becomes and offers to the world what the child in it has. No virtue that America has can ever diminish or vanish, for virtue is an immortal gift which God himself grants to aspiring souls and aspiring nations. The simplicity mind of a child, the sincerity heart of a child, the purity life of a child. Only these three things can awaken America. America does not claim perfection as far as I can see. America does not claim illumination as far as I know. Now, Does America claim anything? Yes, America does. What does America claim? A colossal preparation, not only for its own illumination and perfection, but for the illumination and perfection of the entire world. Judging by her history, America holds the brightest promise of placing at the service of the divine her aspirations, aptitudes, and capacities, as she has often in times of need placed them at the service of humanity. The American people can better realize their love for the soul of America if they discover that the real and immortal reality in each human being, in each nation, is only the sole reality. Everything else is transitory. American politics can return to the spiritual values that they had during the time of the Founding Fathers and some of the previous presidents only if the political leaders and other leaders feel the supreme necessity of an inner life that has the capacity to bring about outer success, outer achievements, outer perfection, and outer satisfaction.
America, 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 great you are, good you are, brave you are, kind you are. America, 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 great you are, good you are, brave you are, kind you are. Oh my America, your heaven, freedom, freedom is ours, aspiration, aspiration, choice, choice, with you, in you is God, ours. With you, in you is God, ours. Victory, victory, voice, voice. America, 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 great you are, good you are, brave you are, kind you are. America, 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 great you are, good you are, brave you are, kind you are. America, America, America.
Future. Until now, the world has seen largely the surfaces of American life, and it has formed its opinion accordingly. Not that her depths have not occasionally come to view, but such occasions have been few in relation to the vastness and variety of her population. Needless to say, there are great indications of a greater future. And as the hour of God dawns and advances toward its fullness, the splendor of America's soul will show more and more on the surface, even for crude eyes to see. In the next 200 years, America's contribution to the family of nations will be equality's universal birthright and reality's transcendental height. America will offer her unprecedented capacity to the community of nations and make all nations feel that her height and depth and speed and power are for them to claim as their very own, and thus create a satisfying and satisfied world family. America is great. America is good. America's greatness is going to increase in infinite measure in the next 200 years, because America knows what greatness is and where it comes from. Greatness is self-giving, and its source is love in peace and peace in love. America's goodness lies in this: God for God's sake, man for man's sake. Aspiration for a higher life is for God's sake. Truth discovery is for God's sake. Peace distribution is for God's sake. Delight manifestation is for God's sake. In her first 200 years, America learned the momentous necessity of the childlike heart. Now, in order to make the fastest progress, the most important thing is for her to have a life of conscious and continuous self-giving. There are two special qualities that Americans can work on to help bring forward all their potential divinity. These two divine qualities are the feeling of universal oneness and constant and cheerful self-giving to the Supreme Pilot, who is man's own highest reality. Undoubtedly, the spiritual forces will be able to manifest in the next 200 years much more than they did in the past 200 years. For not only America's, but also humanity's aspiration is continuously proceeding forward, upward, and inward. In the next 200 years, the citizens of the United States can help themselves develop just by clearing the mind of the thick forest of doubt and by liberating the heart from its insecurity cave. American citizens can best further America's role in the world in the next 200 years by claiming the rest of the world as their very own. This feeling of oneness can alone bring to America an unprecedented leadership and a unique friendship. When I speak of the United Nations, my mind, heart, and soul immediately compel me to speak of the United States in the same breath. When I speak for the United Nations, my mind, heart, and soul are immediately blessed by the prosperous and generous soul of the host state, the Empire State, New York. The term united has always had a special appeal to all human souls, and this transcendent idea has remained in vogue down the sweep of the centuries. To me, the United States and the United Nations are divinely destined to run abreast. Not in vain is the headquarters of the United Nations in the United States, in New York, the capital of the world. This dynamic and fascinating world capital draws the world's attention at every moment. Is there any place that can be more appropriate than New York City to house the vision of universal oneness, which is in the process of being realized and manifested in the heart and soul of humanity? I admire New York. My eyes are enamored of her soul's dynamic beauty. My New York is always astir and bustling. Also, she is marching in gigantic strides. Success emerges before her very eyes. The dawn breaks each day, feeling New York's heart consumed with new zeal. She hates to be absorbed in a fog of fruitless brooding and empty inactivity. Moreover, she wants to be free, eternally free. Never within her four corners will she tolerate the air of captivity. If it is part of her nature to express herself boldly, I cannot blame her. To me, first of all, she deserves this acme of self-confidence. And secondly, God wants New York to be what she is. My New York has courage. My New York has confidence. The problems of anxiety and uncertainty may cover the length and breadth of the world, but my New York is an exception. Her youthful certainty is my heart's delight. When I think of my India, it seems that she has endless time. If she does not avail herself of an opportunity today, it will return to her tomorrow. But when I think of my New York, it seems she is facing a unique opportunity at every moment. If she loses a golden opportunity today, it will never return. New York knows how to seize. She knows how to struggle. She knows how to push forward. She knows how to exert herself, consciously and dynamically. Old blunders fail to plague her. Empty of fear is her heart, which ever grows into the fulfillment of her promising future. Blessed is she. My New York is not a challenge. She is not a competition. She is not a running race. She is not a victory. What then is she? She is a great promise, wherein grows and flowers the infinite unknown. True, at times the United States and the United Nations are not on good terms, but each knows perfectly well that the one adds tremendous value to the other in terms of prestige, recognition, self-awareness, and oneness perfection. Inwardly, they know that they truly need and deserve each other. In silence, unreservedly, the United States gives the United Nations confidence light. In silence, unreservedly, the United Nations gives the United States oneness height. Being a seeker, in my silent heart I feel that the concept of the United Nations has verily come from the United States unconsciously, if not consciously. For the United States had this united feeling 200 years ago, whereas the United Nations is only a few decades old. America says to the United Nations, please be careful before you speak. The United Nations says to America, please be soulful before you offer. At the present moment of evolution, the United States says to the United Nations, if you take my help, you have to use it in my own way. The United Nations says to the United States, I am ready to take your help, and I shall remain most grateful to you. But if I use your help in your own way, then I will be totally lost in the comity of nations. Whatever you can afford to give me, please give me unconditionally. The United States immediately responds, oh no, I do not want to give you my help unconditionally. I have a right to know whether or not my momentous and generous offering is being utilized properly. It is my bounden duty to help your supreme cause, O United Nations. I feel that it is also your bounden duty to accept my wisdom son on rare occasions. The United Nations says, sorry to stand firm in my belief, O United States. One day you will be blessed with the real joy of unconditional self-giving, which is always without a second. The inner role of the United Nations amuses the intelligentsia, inspires the world peace lovers, and nourishes the world oneness servers. God has showered his choicest blessings upon the inner role of the United Nations. When we contemplate the idea of role, we immediately think either of responsibility or challenge. But when it is a matter of inner role, there is no such thing as a responsibility or challenge. There is only one self-giving divinity, which is breathlessly growing into a self-becoming reality. The United Nations is often misunderstood. Perhaps its fate will always remain the same, but is there anybody who is not misunderstood, including poor God? Misunderstanding is the order of the day, but that does not and cannot prevent the United Nations from making its soulful self-offering in the creation of a oneness home for all. Illumining leaders from all over the world who are serving the United Nations remind us of the undeniable fact that the earth cannot exist without the world body, the United Nations, in spite of its apparent failings and problems. The outer role of the United Nations is greatness remarkable. The inner role of the United Nations is goodness admirable. The supreme role of the United Nations is fullness adorable. The pillars of the United States, its presidents, call upon us to dedicate ourselves to the most significant cause that the United Nations embodies. Needless to say, the World Organization is God's gracious experiment and precious experience. Such being the case, we must feel an inner obligation to participate in this aspect of God's cosmic drama. President John F. Kennedy spoke not only to his fellow Americans, but to all his fellow beings when he proclaimed, "My fellow inhabitants of this planet, let us take our stand here in this assembly of nations, and let us see if we, in our own time, can move the world toward a just and lasting peace." President Carter also powerfully encouraged his country to remain part and parcel of the United Nations. He tells us the true truth that real leadership and continuous service to mankind are inseparable. There is no possible means of isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, so we must provide leadership. But this leadership need not depend on our inherent military force or economic power or political persuasion. It should derive from the fact that we try to be right and honest and truthful and decent. A favorite son of New York, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, former United States ambassador to the United Nations, expressed his country's sincere awareness of the sublime necessity of the United Nations. While there have been some calls to boycott the General Assembly or not to vote in it, there have been but few calls for withdrawal from the United Nations. It is almost as if American opinion now acknowledged that there was no escaping involvement in the emergent world society. A staunch supporter of the United Nations, indeed the donor of the land upon which the UN stands, Nelson Rockefeller, vividly drew the parallel between the roots of the United States and the roots of the United Nations. The federal idea, which our founding fathers applied in their historic act of political creation in the 18th century, can be applied in this 20th century in the larger context of the world of free nations, if we will but match our forefathers in courage and vision. The first historic instance secured freedom and order to this new nation. The second can decisively serve to guard freedom and to promote order in a free world. As the Declaration of Independence of the United States is an unparalleled discovery, even so is the Charter of the United Nations. The U.S. Declaration of Independence and the UN Charter are humanity's two aspiration-dedicated realities. The beacon light of the Declaration of Independence shows countless human souls the way to their destined goal. We hold these truths to be self-evident: that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The United Nations Charter bravely and heroically proclaims these rights for all humanity and seeks to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. The composer of the immortal hymn to the United Nations, Maestro Don Pablo Casals, reminds us that individuals and their countries undeniably need the United Nations. He gives an inspired call for us to selflessly play our parts in the inner and outer roles of the United Nations. Those who believe in the dignity of man should act at this time to bring about a deeper understanding among people and a sincere rapprochement between conflicting forces. The United Nations today represents the most important hope for peace. Let us give it all power to act for our benefit, and let us fervently pray that the near future will disperse the clouds that darken our days now. The outer role of the United Nations is a colossal hope. The inner role of the United Nations is a generous assurance. The supreme role of the United Nations is a prosperous satisfaction. Hope is a growing plant. Assurance is a blossoming tree. Satisfaction is a delicious fruit. At the present stage, the United Nations is a growing plant. Is it not absurd for us to expect the United Nations to solve the overwhelming problems of centuries? Let the child plant grow and glow, smile and cry. Then there shall come a time when this tiny plant will grow into a huge tree with countless leaves, sleepless flowers, and spotless fruits, sheltering, inspiring, and nourishing all those who desperately needs its protection. Shelter, rejuvenation, inspiration, and satisfaction, nourishment. The American Declaration of Independence had the pioneer vision of faith, dignity, and humanity's basic needs, equal rights, justice, and freedom. Basically, the same things are found in the Charter of the United Nations. Therefore, we can safely say that the Declaration of Independence and the UN Charter are two close friends walking along the same road. One came and joined the other later on the road, and now both are walking together to reach the same goal, the goal of world peace and satisfaction. According to my inner feeling, the United Nations has definitely contributed something very sublime to the consciousness of America. At every moment, the United Nations is aiming at world brotherhood, world peace, world harmony, and world oneness. America is undoubtedly the right place for the United Nations to be. For America is constantly offering hope and promise to the world at large. America embodies at once humanity's hope and divinity's promise. The soul of America is promise, and the soul of the United Nations is the fulfiller, or you can say the coordinator of that promise. They go together. The next 200 years will see the manifestation of the soul's qualities of America. This manifestation will take place in America's conscious and unconditional leadership of humanity, and America's constant and self-giving friendship with humanity. America gained her independence in 1783 by virtue of determined willpower. Now her spiritual independence will be founded upon her conscious oneness with God. And this can be established only on the strength of her implicit surrender to God's divine dispensation and will. America's vision was to become transcendentally great. America's mission is to become universally good. I feel America has changed for the better. What I am seeing now is that each and every human being has a new hope for peace, and this peace flower is blossoming. Some years ago, it was not like that. Today, every human being not only feels the necessity of peace, but also feels that peace is something attainable. Before, it seemed impossible. It was something to be found only in heaven. But today, no matter how many serious mistakes we are making, no matter how much we are quarreling and fighting, we still feel that there is something called peace, and that we can achieve it. We feel something divine and fulfilling is there, and that we are being prepared for it. This is the greatest progress that humanity is making, and it is giving me the greatest satisfaction. When one has run through a very wide range of glittering, ephemeral things, and sought incessantly to perfect them, one may see a true light from beyond. From this point of view, America has a great possibility of taking to the life of the Spirit. This life does not mean withdrawal and inaction, retirement into the forest to give oneself up solely to the contemplation of the Supreme. That kind of isolation is of no avail. The divine has to be manifested in all his aspects here and now in life. Life itself should be yoga, union with the divine, and matter and spirit must go hand in hand. America's past was God's meaningful promise. America's present is God's soulful cry. America's future will be God's fruitful smile. Yesterday, America enjoyed the sacred flame of liberty. Today, America enjoys the sacred light of equality. Tomorrow, America shall enjoy the sacred sun of divinity. America. You may or may not know what you are doing. You've conquered matter, but you've kept it from conquering you. That is why your fund of scientific knowledge and bountiful wealth you freely place at the service of suffering humanity. Another achievement of yours has been to build up the material basis for the coming great age of spirituality. America. Brought up in the atmosphere of freedom, you have self-confidence in all your undertakings. The benefits of your freedom have fostered in you a sense of responsibility in all matters of national and international interest. America, your progressive spirit, striving towards perfection in everything, is a divine blessing. But for your magnanimous participation in many fields of international activity, the world would not be knit together as closely as it is now, though you and the rest of the world have yet a long way to go to reach the destined goal. America, the fairest child of freedom, the first to fight for the divine gift of freedom and win it for the new world. None, perhaps, has a keener perception of a freedom's worth. America. The whole freedom-loving world salutes you. The holy flame that burned in your heart when you were smarting under the injustices of imperial domination is still alive in you. Your one single claim to immortality is this flame. You live not for yourself alone. You live for freedom and for those who share your love for it. America is wealth. America is heart. America is sacrifice. Before long in America, hopefully, there will shine forth the world's collective soul. May the infinite beauty of America's soul awaken America's body, liberate America's vital, illumine America's mind, and feed America's heart, to liberate them from the fetters of ignorance night.